What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you watched the last episode, you know that we were kind of looking at creativity and how that connects to your life's goal, your life's task, your purpose, your destiny, your future thing, if you will. So I kind of touched on how that analogy can be used as potential energy to kinetic, and there's certain resources you're going to kind of need to begin to collect along the process, along the journey of developing that channel that takes things from nothingness into the real world, nothingness to the real world. And so in this episode, I want to keep this one really short. I'm just going to be listing some of the resources. It's not an exhaustive list. So I'm actually hoping to get a lot of back and forth from you guys to hear if there was anything that kind of worked for you that you'd like to add to this list. This list is a short list of some of the resources that I've been able to collect over some time that have helped me in my process of knowing how to get things from there to here. So without saying too much, let's get straight into it. So in order for us to kind of give context to this list that I'm about to share, I kind of want to break down how I think about what a resource actually is, and that will kind of explain or give insight to why some of these things are on this list. I'll go in a little bit into each of these as I list them out. I'm probably putting a graphic here because of all my hand movement. But first, I have to give you what I see a resource as. So I consider a resource as the word resource, first of all, as a compound word. It's re, which is a prefix, and source, which is an origination point for something of value. So a resource, re being a prefix for repeat action or repeatability. A resource is a place you can go to get a repetition of an original source of value, if you get me. So for example, something that's of value is water. Water comes from the ground and the sky. A resource would be your local water supply guy. He's not necessarily the guy that makes the value, but he can get you to it, if you dig what I'm saying. So for this list, we're going to kind of be looking at the resource and the value you're going to be looking for. And when I go into each one of these in more detail, each one is going to kind of have its own episode on the podcast. So stay tuned for that. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Please hit the bell so that you know as soon as those videos drop. So each one of those we're going to kind of go resource, value, action point. Resource, value, action point. And the reason why is, first you have to recognize what your resource is. No, scratch that. First of all, you have to recognize what the value is. And then when you see the value that you're looking to get, it helps you better recognize your resource. First you have to recognize that you want water. And then when you know you're looking for water, you kind of know the types of places that you're looking for. And when you see that, you need to know what your action points are to get it, to attain it, and to know how it applies to how you want to build into that. So without further ado, let's get into the list. So at the top of the list, and this is something that I believe in quite vividly, if you will, the first resource that we're going to kind of be looking at in the series is going to be your faith. You have to believe in something, one that's bigger than yourself, but also you just have to believe in something. Otherwise, where does your drive come from? What's the original source of your drive, of your why? Like, something had to put that potential energy in there, right? It's not just there for the sake of. There's a grand scheme that's bigger than yourself that you kind of need to consider, and that kind of has to play a big bearing in the choices you make. Is what do you act? And I'm not talking about just being religious. I'm talking about actually believing. If you're a Christian like me, I'm talking about actually believing in God and the kingdom of God and Jesus and everything that's written in the Bible. I'm talking about actual relationship with God, if you will. Not if you will, an actual relationship with God, and not the claims of having an actual relationship with God. That, because that faith plays as a really big resource, if you will, in the process of taking things from where you can barely see them to a place that's real. If you're a Christian, you'll say this with me. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Everything you talk about, that is your future plans, that is your goals, that is this thing, your destiny, your purpose, you can't see right now. But through your faith, you have some proof that it exists. And so then the channel just becomes taking that and through faith, processing it into the real world. Now, of course, in that processing, there's hard work involved. There's improving yourself. There's self-development. There's reading books. There's listening to audios. There's, I don't know, taking courses, whatever it is to sharpen your skill so that by your faith, you can bring that thing into the real world. You do that. So, first resource, faith. The next one we're going to look at is going to be, actually don't know how to title it per se, but by the time you're watching this, I would have probably decided on a title. It has to do with the development of your character, your internal character, your inner fortitudes, your internal strength and all of that, and your ability for self-leadership. Because the tricky bit with going on this type of a journey where you're trying to build the best of who you are is it's very heavily self-governed. Is to a very high degree, you have to be able to tell yourself yes, and you have to be able to tell yourself no. You have to be able to get over certain things about yourself that you know are detrimental to what you're trying to build, for example, and be able to say, I'm not doing that anymore. And this, I guess we're going to have to do an episode on retrogressive habits and all of that stuff. But basically having some strength of character, some control on your emotions, your intellect, and where that places. You kind of want to begin to build on that resource because it's a resource. It's a resource for the value of things like focus. If you can't tell yourself no, how are you going to stop scrolling on TikTok without the strength of character? Without the strength of character, how are you going to be able to hear somebody critique your work when you actually start showing it out to people and not take it the wrong way and not take offense? How are you going to be able to be best equipped to deal with those types of oppositions if your internal guy is not strong enough? Get it? Jumping straight off of that one, another big resource that people don't really consider a resource is adversity. The tough times, the criticisms, the heavy criticisms that might not be said with the kindest of words all the time. Those are some of your biggest resources. I believe it was Jay-Z who said this in an Oprah masterclass. He spoke about, and I paraphrase, he spoke about how he doesn't know yet how to learn from the wins. But in the losses, that's where you find your biggest opportunities to learn and to grow. Is in the adversity. When it's tough, when your back's against the wall, that's when you see the grit of who you're made of and also the things you can work on. That's where you see your weaknesses, you see your strengths, and that can be a very big resource in showing you how you need to grow, which direction you need to put your energies into, where you need to focus, and all of that. So adversity you want to look out for, and we're going to go a lot more into that when we go into that episode. So adversity. This one, which is the ability to effectively and efficiently learn, I believe is something that a lot of people, ironically enough, need to learn. It's not enough to just be around where the information is being shared. That's not the full process of learning. I was speaking to some people today on what learning truly is about, and I have a theory that I genuinely believe is learning involves three things. The first one is collecting the information, or the knowledge, if you will. The next step is processing that knowledge, which is your understanding phase. And lastly, which is a piece of the learning process that most people neglect, is converting that knowledge by understanding into wisdom. Wisdom being the ability to appropriate what you've heard and understood. Is if you hear about how to read words and you understand it, you haven't truly learned how to read until you actually go and read, until you're actually able to go and apply the information you got and further understood into a real world scenario. In the same way, if say you want to learn how to ride a bike, someone can explain it to you, you can understand how the gears and the chains work, but you haven't really learned how to ride a bike until you sit on a bike and cycle. I like that. Cycle. So we're going to have a full episode on effective and efficient learning and what that looks like and how that can be a really super resource. I know for myself, I'm a very big advocate on learning as much as you can, and not just from your traditional academic sources, but learning in general, because when you consider it as just information comes in, you understand it for whatever value it has, and you're able to then appropriate it, then your avenues, your resources for learning then open up to a whole entire world. Is you can go on YouTube, get that information, understand, apply, read a book, get that information, understand, apply, and in that your wisdom bank grows, and what you're able to then do is build on your system of taking your ideas, because now you've equipped yourself with so much wisdom on how to do a plethora of things within the field of what you need to do, that when you actually start channeling, it makes things much smoother. Yeah. One of the most common resources that people know is money. We're going to do a whole episode on money and what money actually is, because I'll say this one liner and then move on to the next one. I genuinely believe money needs to be seen purely as a placeholder for value. So the resource is money, but what you actually need from it is the value it can get you. Money is not an end in itself, but rather a means to an end. So we're gonna do a whole thing on money and seeing that as a resource. I don't want to space these videos out too far apart so that you can kind of track each one and go from this one to the next one to the next one and apply that and apply that and apply that and apply that, and hopefully you can give me feedback on that in the process. I would love to hear from you guys on how this is maybe helping you, if it's helpful to you guys. So yeah, I digress. Last but not least, and this one is probably going to be one of the shortest episodes, is I believe that each person should have a certain sense of ambition. I believe ambition is a good partner to your drive, your why, to getting the first steps of getting your potential energy out. You kind of have to believe that there's something valuable about you. Like there's a reason why you are who you are, right? You have to believe more than anyone else that the one thing the world needs in your particular field needs to come from you, and it can't come from anyone else. And that ambition, that drive will kind of get you to make the first steps. Whether it is, I don't know, writing your first song, writing your first poem, finally taking the step to do that science course so that you can figure out how to be the first person to create, I don't know, a vaccine for cancer or something like that. Ambition is super necessary. Now, I know ambition usually gets painted in a negative light because it's usually accompanied with a lot of negative stereotypes like selfishness and all of that stuff. But the right amount of ambition, less the pride that it potentially can come with, I believe is healthy for getting action, getting activity, getting movement out. It's not enough to just see where you want to go. You have to want to be able to take the first steps to getting there. And I believe ambition does that leaps and bounds. It can get you really far. So I'm expecting to record all these episodes in like a bunch, and then just schedule the posts out probably on Mondays. You should be watching this on a Monday evening. I'm looking to see if I can get regular episodes out on Mondays only. So Monday is going to kind of be the day temporarily, but in case we don't stick to Mondays and we have to post them more regularly or more in between so that we don't have to wait a whole week for the next video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button so that you get a notification as soon as a video drops. If you found this helpful, please leave a like, please leave a comment, share this with somebody you think would like this. And from the guy whose friends call him Ghost,